Welcome back to the deep dive. If you've been watching the AI space, well, you know things move incredibly fast. We're already seeing a shift, right? Beyond just chatbots, beyond those co-pilots that, answer questions or summarize things, we're stepping into this era of the autonomous agent, a system that doesn't just spit back information, but can actually reason, make choices, and, well, act inside complex processes.
Yeah, it's a huge leap. Think about it like the difference between a really smart calculator and, say, a robot that can actually plan out a whole manufacturing sequence. If you wanted to build one of these multi-step action-taking systems, you needed like serious deep ML engineers, complex ways to manage everything, and honestly, weeks, maybe months of painful setup just to see if your idea even had legs.
Right. And that's exactly what we need to dig into today. Our mission here is to show you how these new frameworks are basically knocking down those walls. They're making autonomous agents more modular, faster to get going, and crucially, for big companies, ready for production. We're going to focus in on LangGraph. Think of it as the scaffolding that lets you move these complex AI projects from the lab into the real world safely.
Now, what's really interesting is how the underlying needs have changed. We're not just, throwing a prompt at a language model anymore. We're building systems that need structured thinking, often nonlinear thinking, actually, to get something done. Like, if the system has to check a database, then maybe summarize something, then send an email, but only if certain conditions are met. Well, you need more than just a simple list of steps.
That difference going from a simple sort of static response to dynamic multi-step action, that's the core shift, isn't it? Now, we see some great frameworks out there for just experimenting, right? Tools like Hugging Face seem invaluable for quick prototypes, for testing out agent logic.
Oh, absolutely. Hugging Face is fantastic for the what?
Yeah.
For, prototyping the main model or a specific reasoning bit. But when you start looking at what an enterprise needs, especially in, say, regulated fields, you need more than just a prototype. You need an architecture built for the how. How do you safely manage millions of transactions that might take a while? How do you make sure it's auditable? How do you recover if something breaks mid-process?
Okay, so we've established that this move to agentic systems really needs that production-ready structure. And this is where LangGraph, which comes from the LangChain team, really comes into play. It's not just another tool in the LangChain box, is it? It sounds like a specific extension built for managing complex states and flows.
That's exactly it. LangChain gives you the building blocks. LangGraph gives you the control structure, the orchestration layer. And if you think about the bigger picture, where is this kind of structure absolutely essential? It's in industries where failure is really costly or where compliance isn't optional. We're definitely talking about BFSI here, banking, financial services, insurance. These sectors live and breathe on detailed, verifiable processes. They just can't afford a decision process that's opaque or, loses track of where it is.
Hold on, though. Is graph just a kind of fancy term for a flowchart? Or like a simple sequence? How does thinking in terms of a graph fundamentally change how the AI reasons? Why is this graph design the real insight for enterprise control?
That's a really important question. See, if you use a simple sequence, just a list of instructions, basically the AI just goes step by step, A, then B, then C. But what if it gets to step B and realizes, based on the data, that B isn't needed, or it should have gone to step D instead? In a simple chain, it might still blunder through C, wasting compute,
Right.
wasting time.
Definitely a wasted time. Frustrating, too.
Exactly. LangGraph helps avoid that kind of decision-making mess. By treating each specialized task or agent as a node in a graph, you get structured, nonlinear reasoning. An agent runs a node, checks the result, and then the graph itself directs it to the next logical step based on clear conditional rules, like if the credit score is above 750, go to the instant approval node. If KYC check failed, loop back to the request docs node.
Ah, okay, so that conditional structure is what gives you the control. And crucially, an audit trail, right? It's not just some black box making a guess. It's a traceable path through the decision process.
Precisely. Imagine explaining this to a compliance officer at a bank. It's the difference between saying, well, the AI decided, and actually showing them the exact path the agent took through the graph. Showing the documented stops at the KYC node, the credit check node, the final decision node. That kind of governance is absolutely vital for putting these things into production.
Okay, now here's where it seems really practical, especially for processes that take time. If you're building something for, say, merging two big customer accounts or maybe underwriting complex commercial insurance, that whole interaction could take days, right? Or involve multiple system calls. The agent has to remember what happened earlier.
Yes, you absolutely need persistence and memory. LangGraph really addresses two critical needs for enterprise apps here. First, memory and persistence. Like in a complex financial transaction, if the agent just forgets the initial details or the result of some long validation step, the whole user experience just falls apart. The process has to start over. It's terrible. LangGraph makes sure that the state what the agent knows, what it's already done, sticks around reliably across those long sessions. Doesn't matter if the user logs out and comes back a week later, or if the process needs a human to step in and then hand it back. The context is saved.
And that second part, resilience, that sounds completely non-negotiable, especially when a failure could mean losing a major client or messing up a, I don't know, $100,000 loan application. These workflows can't just disappear and force you to start from scratch.
Think about that exact $100,000 loan application. Let's say during the credit check step, the external API it calls just times out for a second. A simple sequential process would likely just crash. Boom. User has to start all over again. Imagine the frustration. Potential lost business right there. LangGraph is built for state recovery and safe retries. It can pick up right where it left off, make sure the data is still intact, and try that failed step again. Or, if needed, it can even route around the failure based on the graph's logic.
Got it. So it's really designed as the central brain, the orchestrator that expects things might go wrong sometimes and protects the ongoing work.
Exactly. And it's built to connect things. It works naturally with the big platforms you'd expect, OpenAI, Hugging Face, Azure, and so on. But critically, it also integrates with your own company's internal stuff, the legacy APIs, the proprietary databases. It acts like the connective tissue, really bridging that smart LLM layer with the infrastructure you already have.
Okay, let's make this really concrete. You mentioned a compelling example from the sources, the AI loan assistant in BFSI. This seems like a perfect way to show this power of composable agent frameworks actually working.
Yeah, this really shows orchestration done right with real precision. So a customer starts a loan application. The agent, managed by the LangGraph structure, isn't just, generating text. It's actively running a workflow. First, the graph triggers the KYC node to validate the customer's identity. Okay, check. Then it sends a request to the credit retrieval node, which probably hits an external credit bureau API, gets the score back. Then, armed with that data, it moves to the eligibility node, which applies the bank's internal business rules.
So it's not like one giant prompt trying to do everything at once. It's routing specific information to specific tools for specific jobs.
That is the absolute key insight for composability.
Yes.
And within that flow, the sources mention something interesting, a specialized Hugging Face reasoning layer being used within the larger process. Why? Well, maybe that layer is specifically trained and really good at summarizing complex documents that were retrieved. Or maybe it generates a super personalized explanation of why the customer is eligible, tailored to their specific situation. LangGraph manages the overall flow and the state across all these different specialized intelligences. You're orchestrating the data retriever specialist, the validation specialist, the personalized communication specialist, all held together by that single auditable graph.
Okay, we've covered nodes, resilience, memory. But let's tie this technical leap back to the business side. Why should a CEO or maybe an operations lead really care about this shift from a basic chatbot to an autonomous graph-managed agent? How does this actually hit the bottom line, the quarterly report?
Well, the main takeaway here is that these AI agents represent the next really significant jump in enterprise automation. And it directly impacts things you can measure. We're moving past automating just simple, repetitive tasks. Now we're talking about automating complex workflows that often involve judgment and multiple steps.
So what does that actually mean for their KPIs, their key performance indicators? Because, without connecting it to the numbers, it's just cool tech for tech's sake.
Right, it has to connect to results. Think about reducing operational costs. If you implement a resilient LangGraph workflow for something like loan validation or maybe insurance claims processing, you can dramatically cut down on manual errors and the need for human intervention. Fewer errors mean fewer expensive manual reviews, lower compliance risk too. And when we talked about resilience, that ability for the process to recover safely, that directly cuts down on financial risk and helps avoid penalties from regulators if processes break down.
And then there's the customer-facing side. That hits revenue and loyalty directly, right? Experience matters.
Exactly. When that agent remembers the context across different interactions, that memory and persistence we discussed earlier, the customer journey just feels smooth, seamless. That can dramatically boost customer satisfaction, which you'll see reflected directly in things like your NPS, your Net Promoter Score. Leaders really need to ask, are these new agents creating genuinely intelligent customer journeys that actually increase customer lifetime value? Or are they just, cutting call center costs but frustrating people? Because if you build systems that keep forgetting things, that lack persistence, you will frustrate customers. Your NPS will drop.
This has been a really insightful deep dive into actually productionizing these agentic systems. We've seen that while tools for quick prototyping are great and necessary, the real challenge for big regulated companies is managing the structure, the memory, the resilience of these complex workflows. And frameworks like LangGraph seem to provide that essential auditable scaffolding to make true autonomous reasoning and action happen safely in the enterprise.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with, looking a bit beyond just the tech, thinking about the strategic impact of this whole agentic era. The ultimate goal here isn't really about replacing every single human worker with a bunch of nodes in a graph. It's more fundamentally about using this structured, scalable AI intelligence to handle the complex execution.
Yeah.
And that frees up your human experts, the underwriters, the strategists, the senior support, leads to focus their valuable time and creativity on the really unique, high-value problems that, frankly, only human judgment can tackle. The agent manages the orchestration. Human intelligence gets scaled.